Hi everyone, Assalamualaikum and Salam Sejahtera. Today we are going to discuss about how does climate change affect agriculture. As all of us know, the most important criteria of climate change impact is that there is an increase in temperature. And for any particular crop, the effect of increased temperature is depending on the crop's optimal temperature for growth and reproduction. In some areas, warming may benefit the type of the crops that are typically planted there, or allow farmers to shift to crops that are currently grown in warmer area. Conversely, if the higher temperature exceed a crop's optimum temperature, yields will decline. In addition, higher CO2 levels can affect crop yields. Some laboratory experiments suggested that elevated CO2 levels can increase plant growth. However, other factors such as fluctuating temperatures, ozone, and water, as well as nutrient constraint, may counteract this potential increase in yield. For example, if temperature exceeds a crop optimal level, if sufficient water and nutrients are not available, yield increases may be reduced or reversed. Elevated CO2 has been associated with reduced protein and nitrogen content in alfalfa and soybean, resulting in loss in quality. Reduced grain and forage quality can reduce the ability of pasture and rangeland to support grazing livestock. In some cases, more extreme temperature and precipitation can prevent crops from growing. Extreme events, especially floods and drought, where we have not enough water to do agriculture, can harm crops and reduce yield. For example, in 2010 and 2012, the high nighttime temperature affected corn yields globally, and premature budding due to a warm winter in 2012 make cherry plants could not grow well during that year. So it is really important to understand the impact of climate change and increase of temperature with particular crop, especially when dealing with drought. No water. It is a very challenging where rising summer temperatures could make the soils become drier. Although increased irrigation might be possible in some places, it will reduce the water in other areas and it will affect other places. Many weeds, pests and fungi thrive under warmer temperatures, wetter climates and increased CO2 level. The ranges and distribution of weed and pests are likely to increase with climate change. This could cause more problems for farmers. Though rising CO2 can stimulate plant growth in some studies, it also reduces the nutritional value of most food crops. Rising level of atmospheric carbon dioxide reduce the concentration of protein and essential minerals in most plant species, including wheat, soybeans, and rice. This direct effect of rising CO2 on the nutritional value of crop represents a potential threat to human health. Human health, on the other hand, will also be threatened by increased pesticide use due to increased pest pressure and reduction in the efficacy of pesticide. Temperature increases of more than 4 degrees Celsius will endanger the ability of farm and ecosystem to adapt. Water cycle will be very different and less predictable, making the land arid and some lands even drier than normal. We will need major innovation in how we eat and do agriculture. To cope with climate change, we may need to consider to completely change to a different diet, shifting production areas from familiar crop, livestock and fisheries, do new approach to manage waste and energy in food supply chain, as well as restoring degraded farmland, wetlands and forests. How does agriculture itself adapt to climate change? As all of us know, agriculture could cover crops, livestock as well as fisheries. In terms of livestock, heat wave could threaten livestock in a very critical way. It make the livestock vulnerable to disease, reduce fertility and reduce milk production. Drought could also affect pasture and food supply. Climate change could also increase the prevalence of the parasite attack and diseases that affect livestock. Therefore, we might need potential changes in veterinary practices. However, when you use too much parasiticides as well as increase animal health treatment artificially, it may give subsequent implication to the safety, distribution and consumption of livestock to human and also the environment. Therefore, climate change may affect livestock critically too, because the beef or the meat that we eat today from livestock might contain a different nutrient afterwards. In fisheries, many aquatic species could find colder areas. They will travel from hot area to the colder area in order for them to live, or some will be wiped out. And when they move to colder area, they will affect the existing species in competition for food. And some marine disease outbreak could also happen due to the change in climate, especially for salmon, because winter warming in the Arctic could contribute to salmon disease and it will affect the production of salmon. Therefore, in order to adapt to climate change, we might consider switching to varieties tolerant to heat, drought and also salinity. Salinity means if when the sea water increases, there might be salt water intrusion into the paddy field, as an example. So we need a variety of paddy that could be strong in tolerating this saline water. We should also optimize irrigation and optimize the use of water as well as managing soil nutrients and erosion. For livestock management, we need to match animal number to changes in pasture. We cannot have, like before, a very large scale livestock management where we must really analyze how many animals are suitable for a certain size of farm, and more farm that mix crop and livestock as well as controlling the spread of pests, weeds and diseases. As for fisheries, we should switch to species that are more abundant than what are limited, although the demand is high. We should restore degraded habitats and breeding sites. Mangrove is actually a nursery for fishes, and we should also strengthen the infrastructure, ports and landing site. As we have discussed earlier, with the increase of temperature, plant pathogen and pests could move 3 to 5 km a year towards the pole, North Pole and South Pole. So there is wider area for plant pathogen and pests to infect. Therefore, it will affect agriculture as a whole. Will anyone benefit from global warming? In this slide, you can see global warming losers and global warming winners. Insurance companies will have trouble because their coverage towards catastrophic weather events will increase, and they will have losses because of it will affect the economy and population because there are a lot more catastrophic weather event. In agriculture, we have discussed just now that increase in temperature could affect crop cultivation as well as fisheries, where more species could be mobilized towards the North and South Pole due to warmer ocean. As for global warming winners, healthcare industry and pharmaceutical companies will be more critical and important in the future because more people, we have more risk greater risk of death from heat stroke, dehydration, and exhaustion, and respiratory disease due to air pollution. So extreme heat and poor air quality. So more health problems make more profits for healthcare industry and pharmaceutical companies. As for eco-marketeers, the companies, industries that are venturing into green products, as the community are more interested into green products, eco-friendly product, they could gain from this green marketing. So do the water recreation, where high tide and we have more flooding everywhere. So people selling boats or jet ski would have increase in revenue. Will any country actually benefit from global warming? So as you can see on the slide, the flag of Canada and Russia. This is because those countries have huge frozen hinterland or tundra area, and which are normally being covered by heavy snow and not accessible. Therefore, with less cold area, so agriculture and mining could take place. However, there will be potential damage in natural resources and possible influx of refugees from less fortunate lands. You might ever heard about the term climate refugee, where there is a catastrophic event, so that people have to move from one area to another area in order to find a living. Have you experienced climate change firsthand? I would like to share with you my own story, which I call the Nagano butterfly effect. When I was in Japan, every year during the winter, I will take time to go snowboarding at Hakuba Iwatake, and this is me. At Hakuba Iwatake, we went to Hakuba Iwatake because it has a snowy, fluffy snow. I bet our classmate, our Japanese mobility student could make sure of this. So I'm from Kyoto. I studied in Kyoto University. So it's around 6 hours bus ride to Nagano. So when I was there, I ride the lift on top to the top of the hill with my board in order to snowboard down the track. At the end of the lift, I saw a group of uncle and aunties, Japanese uncle and aunties, were gathering and holding something on their hand. So I asked the auntie, out of curiosity, "Oba-chan, nani sore? What's that, auntie?" And the auntie replied me and said, "Cho desu." Cho means butterfly. So I was just like, huh? そうやな。蝶だね。何か珍しい What's so weird about having butterfly there? Because, yeah, butterfly could be everywhere. That's what I thought. But then the auntie explained to me that this particular butterfly is Nagasaki ageha, or the great Mormon swallowtail Papiliomemnon. And it is normally being found at the southern part of Japan, Nagasaki. Based on its name, Nagasaki ageha, you can see Nagasaki is southern part. So in 1980s, you can find it in Kyoto. And 2009, the year that I went there, you can find Nagasaki ageha in Nagano. So it means that warmer area could make the Nagasaki ageha travel and be found at further north of the Honshu Island. So even the uncle and aunties told me that if the world continue to be warmer, in the future we might see Nagasaki ageha in Hokkaido, this part. So I have experienced climate change firsthand. So if you have experienced any effect of climate change from your story, so you might share it in our next lecture. So some people are still wondering whether climate change is true or not. This is something debatable, still debatable. And based on the survey by Yale and George Mason University towards 981 samples in May 2011, we could see that 27% of people are concerned towards climate change, 12% are alarmed, 25% are cautious. So we could say that majority of the people of the community have belief in global warming and concern and motivated to do something about it, while around 35% are disengaged, doubtful and dismissive. So you could say that most people agree that climate change is happening and we should do something about it. So is it global cooling or warming? Because when we talk about global warming or climate change, in fact, there are certain places that turns cold. For example, like Malaysia in December last year, we had a cold weather around 23 degrees and 25 degrees even in the afternoon. At that time, if you still remember, in December 2019. While some places are really hot, like the Death Valley in California reaching 54 degrees Celsius. So, however, the world is in equilibrium. There are evidences that ice melts fresh water into northern Atlantic and disturb the ocean temperature balance. The ocean is not a bathtub, so it worked on a sort of conveyor belt method to circulate cold and warm waters, thereby helping control cold, moderate and warm areas of the globe. Earth's climate is only partly affected by land temperatures and sunlight. Ocean, which store vast amount of energy and are slow to warm and up and cool down, contribute greatly to climate. So there are microclimate and macroclimate effect. So there are certain things that are controlled by a few factors, interrelated factors, and as the ocean holds a very vast amount of energy, it could affect the climate too. So in the optimistic scenario, if we would like to be positive, we could say that if the climate is changing, but then Earth turns out to be less sensitive to greenhouse gases than currently believed, so we are doing okay. And if plants and animals manage to adapt to the inevitable changes, then it will be fine too. And if us, human society, develop much greater political will to bring emission under control, and we will have major technological breakthrough that can help society to limit emission as well as adjust to climate change. As example, we suddenly found an energy resource that is cheaper than fossil fuel and cleaner, then the world is gonna be fine. If we ask, is there anything we can do? There's a lot in order to reduce the impact of climate change to this community. If you love food, don't waste. Take whatever portion that you could finish. And you guys are young, you still have choices. You can use more public transportation, Grab. You can go green, go hybrid. You can eat less meat because some studies said that meat produces the most CO2 in the process and use a lot of water. Plant trees, use energy wisely, save money, and that kind of stuff. I would also like to introduce the concept of thrivability, which is beyond sustainability. Thrivability is the act of thriving or prospering. It is thus goes beyond simply surviving or sustaining. We are talking about sustainable, but then sustaining seems like we are just surviving. It is not enough to find ways just to sustain life and human life on planet. Thrivability is visionary. It is about co-evolving the future we want rather than avoiding a future that terrifies us. Think about it and we'll discuss about it. Thank you very much and see you again.